Hi, I'm Romi Cortier from Romi Cortier Design. Recently I've noticed that wallpaper is making a huge comeback. And while I love the subtlety or the boldness of wallpaper, it can be very expensive to purchase, expensive to install, and even more expensive to remove. In fact, a designer friend of mine recently spent over $2,000 for just enough wallpaper to paper a tiny, small guest bathroom. So today, for about $60, I'm going to show you how to create a Surrealist-inspired wall mural that will transform this bistro dining area from ordinary to extraordinary. Let's get started. My inspiration for this room comes from this painting by Rene Magritte. Rene Magritte was a surrealist, and he liked to put objects in unexpected places. So I've got a outdoor patio that's really an indoor patio, but at a quick glance it might look like you're outdoors. That's why we've done these wonderful tree drawings here on the wall, and we're going to do a light blue background that will emulate the sky. We're going to do 2 coats of primer here on the walls. If we were going darker, it wouldn't make a difference, but this gold might actually come through, and our new color is going to be a light blue. Light blue combined with yellow can actually make green, and since paint does have a transparent quality, it's very important to start with a clean palette. I'm just getting ready to put on the finishing touches of the primer. So you can see 1 coat of primer versus 2 coat of primer. It makes a big difference here. Now that our primer is finished, we're going to use Dunn Edwards paint called Brian's Song. It's a beautiful lavender blue that has a little bit of red in it. So it's not just your average baby blue, but kind of a lavender blue. Okay, we've got both coats of paint on the wall, so we've got our lavender background for this mural. Now for the fun stuff. We're going to take these branches and use them as a stencil. So what I'm going to do is put these on the wall and take a pencil and draw around here and create the shapes, and we're going to mix it up a little bit. We're going to turn the branches around. I've got different shapes and different sizes of branches, and this is going to be our beginning structure for the wall, and I'll show you how to paint it in afterwards. So what I've done to make these branches work also is sometimes there were pieces sticking out that got in the way, so we cut off the extra pieces so that we can actually lay these flat against the wall. These branches have a natural irregularity, and that's what we want to capture, and that's why we're using the branch as a stencil. There's no wrong way to do this. As long as you get this branch flat and you can make a shape, that's all that matters. This is why this is a creative process. What I'm also going to do here is I'm actually going to take this over the edge of the window and actually have it wrap around into the window seal there, because it'll help it make it even that much more interesting. I want to show you the paintbrush I'm using today. As you'll notice, it's a very thin paintbrush that actually comes to a point. It's not a square paintbrush. I've taken the paint here, this Dunn Edwards color called Cocoa, and I've poured it into a little plastic container. Then I added water to this to make this more liquidy. And I'm going to go ahead and start working on filling in these lines. The lines that I've drawn with a pencil are really just guidelines. Ideally, just 1 coat of paint is enough. Now this paint will be transparent because we've added water to it. If you want to make this look a little bit more opaque, you can go back a second time later and actually add in a second layer on top of this once it dries. However, I like the fact that it looks hand-painted. The other thing that makes this really interesting is the fact that we've got 2 very strong color choices. The dark color against the light color will make this have a real high impact from far away. And then once the viewer gets up close, they're going to take a second look and go, oh wow, it's hand-painted. This isn't wallpaper. This is not a stencil, but it's actually something that you hand-painted yourself at home. So it'll make it really a great conversation piece. Part of the reason I've chosen latex house paint that I've diluted with water is because latex house paint is actually more durable than acrylic. The acrylic paint would be too thick. With latex house paint, this is a very thin, flat kind of finish. If the paint is too thick on the wall, you'll still see the shape of it underneath your house paint when you paint over it. So by using house paint, it lets you have the option to paint over it if you decide you don't like it. The home that we're working in right now was built in 1929. It's an old French Normandy home in Los Angeles Miracle Mile district. And when they built these homes in the 1920s, they did something called lath and plaster. They don't have the traditional drywall that homes that are built today have. So the finish on this wall, for the most part, you can see is fairly smooth. There's a little texture in there, maybe from previous years of paint, but this texture is actually very, very smooth, so it makes painting these branches really, really easy. Once you've painted a couple of these branches, you really get to understand the natural shape that you're working with. And so if you want to add a little bit here and there and add a couple little extra notches, that'll be great. It'll just add more to the natural texture of the branch. And that's why we use the natural branch. We want this to look like a branch and not like you just kind of lost your mind and went crazy with paints on the wall. One of our final steps here is to paint some clouds on the sky up there. So I'm adding a little bit of water to some white paint. I'm going to stir this up. I'm going to make this the paint a little bit thinner like I did with the branches, so it's easier to manipulate, because this is, again, it's a white latex paint. And I'm using a much larger brush this time also. It's actually a very inexpensive brush you can buy at most paint stores, but it has a really soft quality to it, so as I paint the clouds, I can brush them on soft and have them not be too thick. I'm going to paint some circles up there. The bottom is going to be a little smoother and straighter. Then I'm going to start taking this brush and wisping out the edges. So I'm trying to diffuse the edges as much as possible to actually get them to look like clouds. If they're too solid, they end up not quite working as well. I'm going to come in right below that and do some smaller clouds. I want it to feel like we have a sense of forced perspective by making the top clouds larger and the clouds underneath are going to be much smaller. And that'll give us the feeling of actually creating a rounder sky where it's looking and adding depth to it. Okay, I'm just going to put the finishing touches on the clouds here. Like I said before, if you go in and do it real light, then you can go back with a couple layers of white a little bit thicker and give it more definition with the clouds. It kind of creates a little shadow behind it where it blends into the blue. And then with a thicker white on the front of the cloud, it starts to create the sense of the cloud dissipating into the sky. Let's say tomorrow you come back here when this is all completely dry and you look at it and it's not quite right. You can take a little bit more paint and keep tweaking it. So there we go. So you can see we finished the room off. We brought everything back in that we took out earlier, plus we've dressed the table for dinner for two. I think it has a really great finished feel to it, and I think any of us would be happy to sit here and have dinner together. Our creativity is our path to a brighter tomorrow. I'm Romi Cortier, designing better living.